If a hummingbird visits you when you are alone, someone is trying to reach you. You know the kind of moment I mean. You were outside, not doing anything in particular. Maybe the day had been heavy. Maybe you had been thinking about someone you lost, turning over a memory you cannot quite let go of. Or maybe you were simply standing there, quiet, not thinking of anything at all. And then it appeared, not at the feeder, not across the yard, right there, in front of you, close enough that you could hear the sound of its wings, that soft, almost impossible hum. A hummingbird, hovering at the level of your face, its tiny eye fixed on you with a steadiness. That did not make sense for something moving that fast. It stayed longer than it had any reason to stay. And when it left, something in you felt different. Not imagined, not invented, different. You felt it the moment it happened, before your mind had time to form an explanation. You are not the first person to feel that, not by a long way. Welcome back. If you are new here, please subscribe, because what you are about to learn will change everything. It will change the way you look at every hummingbird that has ever found you, and every one that will. Today, we are going deep into one of the most profound and least spoken about experiences in the natural world. The hummingbird that comes to you when you are alone. What it means across some of the oldest spiritual traditions on this continent. What science now tells us about why hummingbirds behave this way, and why so many people just like you, have had this exact experience at the exact moment they needed it most. There are 7 things I want to share with you today. Stay until the end. The last one is the one that people tell me they cannot stop thinking about, sometimes years later. Before we talk about your yard, we have to go back, because the belief that the hummingbird carries something of those we have lost is not a modern comfort. It is not a feeling we invented to make ourselves feel better. It is one of the oldest and most widespread spiritual convictions in the entire Western Hemisphere. And it was not born in any single culture. The Aztecs believed that warriors who died in battle were reborn as hummingbirds. Their most powerful deity, Huitzilopochtli, whose name means hummingbird of the south, was depicted with hummingbird feathers across his entire body. The bird was not chosen for its beauty. It was chosen for what it represented: speed beyond sight, courage beyond size, impossible energy, and the capacity to exist between worlds, to move at a frequency the living eye can barely follow. To the Aztecs, the hummingbird was not a symbol of the dead. It was the dead, returned in a form that could still be witnessed. The Taino people of the Caribbean, one of the oldest known cultures of the Americas, called the hummingbird colibri. They believed it to be a sacred symbol of rebirth, the creature that carries love from one life into the next. In their understanding, love did not end at death. It transformed, and the hummingbird was its new body. Among the Hopi of the American Southwest, the hummingbird was a messenger sent to the gods on behalf of the people, an intermediary between what is seen and what is beyond sight. When the Hopi people needed rain, needed healing, needed something only the spirit world could provide, it was the hummingbird they trusted to carry that prayer upward. The Cherokee understood it differently, but just as profoundly. To them, the hummingbird was the retriever of lost things, the creature sent to bring back what love could not bear to leave behind. There is a Cherokee story in which a woman's lover dies, and she stops singing. She stops speaking. She disappears into a grief so complete that the world around her goes silent. The hummingbird hears the silence, and it goes to find what was lost. It returns, carrying the song she thought was gone forever. And with it, she is able to breathe again. Across the Caribbean, particularly in Trinidad, and among Afro-Caribbean spiritual traditions, the arrival of a hummingbird near someone in grief is not seen as coincidence. It is understood as contact. This is not fringe belief from the margins of these cultures. This is central, ancient, multi-generational spiritual knowledge, held by peoples who watch the natural world with a depth and precision that most of us have never known. When you feel that a hummingbird is trying to tell you something, you are participating in one of the oldest human experiences on this continent. Now let us talk about what science tells us, because it does not contradict the spiritual, it deepens it. Hummingbirds have the largest brain relative to body size of any bird species on Earth, a full 24% more brain volume proportionally than most songbirds. and a significant portion of that brain is devoted to memory, specifically spatial and individual recognition memory, the ability to know exactly where something was and exactly who was there. Research published in Current Biology found that hummingbirds can remember every flower they visited, in what sequence, how recently, and precisely how long, until it would refill, tracking hundreds of locations simultaneously with a precision that would challenge a computer. But here is what matters for your yard. That same memory extends to people. Hummingbirds recognize individual humans. They track the color of your clothing, the rhythm of your routine, the specific pattern of your movements through a space. If you have filled a feeder consistently, if you wear red, the color they associate most powerfully with nectar, a hummingbird in your territory does not just know your feeder. It knows you, your presence, your face, your stillness. This is why a hummingbird that hovers directly in front of you is not confused or lost. It is investigating something it has already mapped as safe. It is coming to you because it has decided, with the full weight of its extraordinary cognitive capacity, that you specifically are someone worth approaching. In the natural world, nothing a hummingbird does is accidental. Nothing is wasted. Every choice this creature makes costs energy it cannot afford to spend carelessly. When it chooses you, that choice is real. Let me stay with this for a moment, because this is where the stories of thousands of people begin to form a pattern that is very hard to dismiss. In grief support communities, in church groups, in family conversations that happen quietly around kitchen tables, the same experience comes up again and again. A woman who loses her mother. She goes out onto the porch the next morning, not sure she can manage the day. A hummingbird appears at eye level and stays for nearly a minute. She is not near a feeder. She is not wearing red. The bird has no reason to be there. A man standing at his father's grave for the first time. A ruby-throated hummingbird arrives from nowhere, in the middle of October, far past the season when it should still be there. Hovers directly in front of him for a long, still moment, and then continues south. A grandmother alone on her first birthday without her husband. She looks up from the chair where she is sitting. A hummingbird is at the window of a room that has never had a feeder. A teenage boy who had just lost his older brother. He was sitting on the back steps, not crying, just empty, the way grief can make you feel. A hummingbird landed on the railing beside him, not hovering, landed, and sat there for nearly 2 minutes. He told his mother that night. She told me, years later. She said he had never spoken about it to anyone before, not once. In all those years, a woman in her 50s who had miscarried, alone in her garden, 3 days later. A hummingbird hovered in front of her for so long, she began counting. She got to 37 before it left. She told me that in that moment she spoke out loud, for the first time, to the child she had lost. These are not stories from one place or one kind of person. They come from across every state, from people of different faiths, different backgrounds, different beliefs about the supernatural. But what they describe is always the same. In that moment, they felt less alone. What is happening? The honest answer is that we cannot say with certainty. What we can say is this: hummingbirds are drawn to stillness, to the warmth of a human presence they have come to understand as safe. They are among the very few wild creatures that will deliberately, actively, approach a quiet and seated person, not from hunger, not from desperation, from something that looks, by every observable measure, like curiosity, like recognition. If you are sitting alone, grieving, thinking, or simply present, you are sending signals this creature is built to read. Your stillness, your warmth, the fact that you belong in this space. Whether what arrives is a messenger or simply a creature, responding to something it recognizes in you, the result is the same. You feel less alone. The male ruby-throated hummingbird carries a throat patch called a gorget, and nothing about it is an accident. In shadow, that gorget appears almost black, flat, invisible against the body. Then the light shifts, and in a single moment, it blazes. A red so vivid, so saturated, so impossibly alive, that it barely seems like something a living creature should be able to produce. The color is not pigment, it is structure. Microscopic platelets in the feather barbules, arranged with such precision that they refract light the way a prism does. The bird does not change. The light changes, and with it, the bird transforms. From dark to blazing, from invisible to unmistakable, from the shadow of a thing to the fullest, most vivid version of itself. In many spiritual traditions, this quality, the ability to exist one way in darkness and another in light, is understood as the mark of a creature that moves between states, between the visible and what cannot be seen, between who is present and who has passed. The ruby throat has been understood in folk tradition as carrying the color of love across whatever distance separates the living from those who are gone. You do not need to hold any particular belief to feel the weight of looking at something that small, that improbable, hovering 3 feet from your face, its throat suddenly blazing in a shaft of afternoon light. It asks something of you. And most people, in that moment, understand exactly what it is asking. A hummingbird in hover is doing something no other bird on this continent can do. It is beating its wings between 50 and 80 times per second. Its heart is beating at over 1,200 beats per minute. Its metabolism is operating at a rate that would be fatal to any other vertebrate in minutes. Every system in that tiny body is running at a speed that defies reason. And yet the body itself is perfectly, unsettlingly still. Everything about a hovering hummingbird is speed, except the creature itself, which hangs in the air with an eerie, suspended calm, like a held breath. When a hummingbird hovers in front of your face and turns its head toward you, it is making a choice that costs it something. It is holding position, spending an extraordinary amount of energy simply to look at you, to be present with you in a way that requires tremendous effort. Research from UC Davis on hummingbird visual cognition shows that their eyes process movement at 4 times the frame rate of human vision. They can see individual wing beats of other hummingbirds in what appears to us as an indistinguishable blur. When a hummingbird looks at you while hovering, it is seeing you with a clarity and resolution our own eyes cannot match. It sees you completely, and in that moment, for whatever reason, spiritual or scientific or both, you feel it. You feel seen. If a hummingbird has visited you once, during a significant moment, and then appeared again at the same time of day, near the same place, when there was no particular reason for it to be there, pay close attention. Hummingbirds are among the most location-faithful birds in North America. They hold territories with extraordinary precision. Individual birds, banded by researchers, have been documented returning to within feet of the same perch, the same feeder, the same tree branch, across multiple migration cycles spanning years. They remember not just a place, but a place as it relates to the people who made it feel safe. If your hummingbird returns, not just to a feeder, but to a specific spot near where you stand, or beside the window you look out of, or near the part of the yard you spend time in, it has built you into its map of the world. You are a landmark to that creature, a fixed point in its understanding of where it belongs. In the traditions of many cultures that have lived with hummingbirds for centuries, the return of a messenger bird is never seen as repetition. It is confirmation. The first visit says, "I am here." The return says, "I have not forgotten you." Whether you receive that through science or through faith, the hummingbird's return is real. It is documented. And it means that you, specifically, have been chosen as part of this creature's world. I have saved this one for last. It is the one that stays with people the longest. Among all the hummingbird stories I have been given, and there are more than I can count, one kind comes up again and again, told by people who had no belief in signs, no particular faith in messengers, no expectation of anything unusual whatsoever. They were not looking for comfort. They were not thinking about who they had lost. They were just outside, doing something small, something ordinary, when it came, and they knew, not because they had been told to expect it, not because they were watching for it, but because in the moment it happened, something in them recognized it before the mind had time to explain it away. A retired school teacher from Ohio told me she was deadheading her petunias, just working in the garden, not thinking of anything in particular. Her husband had died 11 months before. She had not cried in weeks. She did not think she had any tears left. A hummingbird hovered 6 inches from her face for almost 40 seconds. She told me, "I did not decide it was him. I just knew." She cried then, standing there in the garden, hands still covered in soil. And when the bird left, the grief was still there. It did not disappear, but it was different. It was no longer the kind of grief that closes everything off. It was the kind that leaves a door open. That knowing, that recognition which arrives before thought, runs through every culture, every language, every spiritual tradition that has ever lived alongside these birds. The hummingbird did not explain itself. It never does. It came when she was alone. It stayed long enough to be felt, and then it was gone, back into the impossible speed of its own existence, leaving behind a stillness she told me she could still feel years later. If this has happened to you, you already know exactly what I am describing. You knew it in the moment it happened, even if you have never spoken about it to anyone. And if it has not happened yet, now you will know what it is when it does. Have you had a moment like this? A hummingbird that came to you when you needed it, or when you least expected it, and left you feeling something you could not quite name? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and the stories people share in these moments are among the most extraordinary things I have ever been given. I will see you in the next one.